This episode of Behind the Billboard is brought to you by Bauer Media Outdoor.
And here's a little drum roll moment for all of you. Next year marks the 20th Outdoor Media Awards. That's 2 decades of championing the bold ideas and brilliant out-of-home campaigns that stop people in their tracks.
The awards celebrate creativity, planning, innovation, and the work that really gets seen. If you think you've got a winning campaign, mark your calendars. Entries open on January 22nd, 2026.
That's the 20th Outdoor Media Awards, brought to you by Bauer Media Outdoor.
Hugh, happy birthday. You're 100 today. We are 100 today.
Pretty good. That's pretty good. 100. I can't believe it's 6 years ago. John sent that picture.
Yeah,
didn't
it's
he?
6 years.
So we're
6 years, 100 episodes.
Yeah, we look all right on it, don't we? We got these tops. We got
We're
a
fully
legend.
branded up.
Yeah, we've got
a big dog today.
we've got a knight of the realm. So we got John Heg today.
Absolutely brilliant. Before we do that, though, we have a very, very special, powerful poster from our friends at Bauer Media.
Yes, please.
So we'll pass you over to them.
I want to start by congratulating you all on the 100th episode of Behind the Billboard. What an amazing achievement. And to thank you for giving us such great insight into how some of the best Billboard campaigns came about. I've got a corker to add to the pot as number 100, BBC's Dracula from 2019. The BBC are big supporters of Out of Home and have created some wonderful, powerful posters for their shows and sporting events, but it was their work promoting their Dracula reboot that really stood out as something special. They just used a few wooden stakes and some floodlights, but positioned them in such a way that when the sun went down, the shadow of the Count came to life. It was magnificent. Such a beautifully simple concept, expertly executed. It honestly felt more like an art installation than an advertising campaign. And while it obviously went viral on social, nothing compared to seeing it in person. I love the way it played with light and dark to create something out of nothing, and it remains one of those campaigns that you wish you had thought of. I hope you agree it's a very worthy number 100.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's what.
And actually, that's what today's show's all about as well. We're going to be talking about the most powerful posters over time.
Yeah.
And we got our top 100, haven't we?
I have to say, it's a pretty... I've spent so long doing
You
this.
did a good 10, 15-minute shift putting them together. It's a very incredible
Just so
piece
everyone
of work.
listen. So this is going to be available online. It's a sort of a project of ours we've been doing for weeks, months.
Really, we've been doing this our entire lives because we started this journey as an idea around making a book called The Great Outdoors.
That's true, actually. That's how it started.
And so...
Forgot that.
I remember we would go through in the coffee shop. We would look through all these different, and we'd try and score them. And we'd try and put, what if this was a top 100? Where would it be?
Yeah.
And actually, putting that together now has been quite.
Well, it's
cathartic,
also
isn't
much better. Not us putting it together. We have got the listeners, and I think I've said this before, but that we've worked out there's about 2,500 years worth of experience have been on our show now. So those people can't be wrong. We think this is going to be the definitive outdoor list. It'll change and people will go, I don't agree, I do agree. But, that's
there will always be that. I
for.
can't believe you put that at number 4. It's okay. You know what? We asked our guests. And we've got, this is industry people.
Because it's our train set though, we had the final say on a few things.
Yeah.
So, again, call us up, tell us, take us to task, buy us a pint.
But before you do that, let's hear from Mr. John Hegarty. We're going to go and get him. He's just knocking at the door now.
I cannot tell you how excited I am for this. A little bit nervous, as you can tell, but let's go get him. Right, Sir John Hegarty, ad man extraordinaire, founder of Bartleby Hegarty and a business of creativity, winemaker, wearer of the coolest Paul Smith suits, and the most important guest we've ever had on the show. Welcome to Behind the Billboard.
Yeah, welcome.
Brilliant. I understand this is the 100th.
This is the 100th episode.
I am on the 100th. I'm not quite sure whether that's great or terrible. I'm just trying to work it out.
No, but you have been on at number 26.
I was number 26.
Yeah, so
very good.
We just talked about this. We had to get our show right for the 25 previous episodes. You would have been our first, obviously.
So you're a quarter of a century, and then now I'm on the 100.
Yeah, let's get that bloke on. No.
What we did is for this episode, we've gone back through our archives. We invite everyone on to talk about all the great work and stuff. But we've also gone back through our archives of our listenership, and your episode number 26, as we go through the annals of our history, is the highest performing episode. So
is it really?
For our 100th episode, we had to have you back.
This is kind of next step. Next step is the Graham Norton show.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you
you, Taylor Swift, Lewis,
me, Taylor Swift, Matthew McConaughey.
Are we paying you for today? I can't remember.
Was
there a rate?
Is this another charity?
No,
it's definitely charity.
It's definitely charity. Yeah.
Right. So, John, we have to ask, how are you, and what have you been up to lately? What's the latest?
How am I? I'm very good, actually. What have I been up to? I've been up to lots of things. Last time I spoke to you, our company, the Garage Soho, which was an early stage investment company, getting brands, business ideas up off the ground, getting finance for them, and then helping them, guiding them about building a brand, because that's where value resides. Did that for 10 years, and then we started what we call the business of creativity, which is a series of lectures teaching business about creativity and the fundamental need for creativity in driving a business. And it's a kind of it's a real kind of mission I'm on now, which is to get people to understand how important creativity is. Now, you're both creative, and you will have spent your life with people saying to you, well, you're creative. By implication, I'm not, or whatever it might be.
Right.
And of course, everybody's creative. It's kind of what separates us out from the animal kingdom. But getting people to understand that and the value of it is fundamentally important. And so that's a series of talks I present, and we sell that to large organizations, companies, and it's been very successful. And then we've done another one by Orlando Wood, series of talks on, it's called APE, Advertising Principles Explained, understanding and explaining the principles of advertising. Then we've done another talk on AI.
Right.
Marketing AI decoded, made.
Yes.
And so we're doing that. We're doing kind of, and I quite enjoy that. And then I'm working on a personal project, which I really can't talk about at the moment. But I could come back and talk about that.
Yes.
And it will be very, very important to talk about that. So I should book it in with you.
Can I just quickly ask, the business creativity, which I love. So I particularly like the free LinkedIn comments, quotes, and I sometimes copy them, paste them into my notes, and then sort of try and claim them for my own when I'm working.
When you're trying to look.
Always steal good stuff. First lesson in life.
But do you set a time aside in your diary every week to go, right, this is it, or do they come to you? How does it? Because they're such brilliant pearls of wisdom.
That's very kind of you saying that. Yeah. No, they're just things I just occur to me as I'm doing. Okay. I know I've got to do a couple a week.
Right.
And for instance, I did a couple yesterday. I did one on the fact that Traitors has had this huge success on what they call linear television as opposed to Netflix or whatever you want to call it. And it proves that when people say there is a trajectory, life is never a straight line. And people are always trying to dismiss something which has huge value rather than assess what it does. And it's really about the value of linear television and how it brings people together. And watching as one.
Yeah, the appointment to view moment.
Yeah, which is just brilliant. So that's an example. So you respond to kind of what's going on there. And sometimes it's, I'll just an idea I had before, and, you might explain, creativity isn't an occupation, it's a preoccupation, and talk about that. And kind of.
On the Traitors thing, I'm not a massive fan, but then to remain in touch with my daughters at university, it's one of those, like you said,
appointment to view. Yeah,
so I've got to do it.
You've got to do it.
But then my wife and I agreed that we could have our laptops open whilst watching it, because they just draw it out over and anyway. But my daughter did observe that the celebrity version is slightly wrong. You should watch the other ones because it's much more intriguing.
It's funny actually, because I've only watched and again we came just across it. We normally haven't watched it, and a program ended and we were waiting for the news and it was the last bit. That was quite interesting. But I thought it's better with celebrities because you know the celebrities, you know their character, or by and large, you know their character and personality. Right. And then you can see how they have to bend or twist that or establish themselves as being a faithful versus a traitor.
What's quite interesting about the regular people episodes are that you get a bit of their backstory. So there was a girl in the most recent series who put on a Welsh accent.
No.
Even though she wasn't Welsh, because
that's a bit weird.
Because she'd read somewhere that Welsh people are more trusted. If you speak in a Welsh accent, you're more trusted. So she, for the entire series, she put on a Welsh accent, and she was one of the traitors. And it's quite interesting to see. You get as the audience, you get a bit of their backstory, but what they project into the castle, into their peer group is very different.
I think that's very interesting. Actually, I had a theory about account people and planners.
Oh yeah,
and I said my recruitment policy for account people and planners were account people had to be over 6 foot tall because they kind of dominated a meeting, and planners had to have a regional accent because clients would trust them more.
Okay,
and if you walked in as a planner with a posh Oxford accent, you're not a man of the people or a woman of the people or whatever you want to say, you wouldn't be trusted. But if you came in with a really good regional accent, in their mind they'd go, that person knows the people. We used to have wonderful Charlie Robertson, who was brilliant player from Glasgow, and I used to watch clients just lap up he could talk absolute nonsense. He didn't, by the way. He was brilliant, but he could have talked absolute nonsense, and they believed every word because he spoke in this wonderful, broad Glaswegian accent, and they believed everything he said.
That's brilliant.
Just going back to the business of creativity, I sat on one of the first courses when you first launched it. What I thought was really interesting was it's global. Everyone can join on the webinar, and the conversation starts to happen through the system as well. So people are asking questions, and you did the live Q&As throughout the course. And just the broad spectrum of industry that people come to the course from is really incredible. It's not just advertising people. It's not just so-and-so sitting in an agency in New York and Los Angeles and Tokyo. It is from all walks of life and from all different markets. So it's interesting that the reach has gone so big.
That is
immediately. It's good.
That's great, actually. And I really, actually, my ideal would be to get the CFOs doing it, because if they then understand creativity, they have the checkbook, so to speak, it will be much better
not
for
just
everybody.
the marketing departments, but
it goes down well with marketing departments for very obvious reasons, but it was called the business of creativity, not the marketing of creativity.
Yeah.
And we really do want it to be that broad. So it's great that that's happening, yeah.
Right. So anyway, today we're going to get back on track. We're only halfway through the first page.
Is it? Oh, it's over, is it?
Yeah,
right. Okay, I can
brilliant,
go now,
John.
can I?
Lovely to see you.
Look at that.
Right. So we are celebrating our 100th episode with John. It's brilliant. And we are featuring our guests' 100 favourite billboards. So it is a pretty sumptuous list. We're not going to go for everyone slavishly. Obviously, that will be...
But we will publish the list through the episode description. So if you do want to see if your work has featured in our top 100, then do have a look online.
Right. And I'd be a bit, I don't know if this is a bit pushy and arrogant, but say, because the show has featured people like your good self, I've worked out there's over 2,500 years of experience in our show. So that list is probably better than any online. Hey, we asked our readers. So anyway, so it could be.
Are you pointing at the drum right now?
Exactly.
Is that what you're doing? I know what you're doing.
I'm just telling you.
Because we were sharing the link to each other about the drums top 50.
So we are going to pick certain areas. But Dan, before that, we're going to ask John something, aren't we?
Yes, we are going to do the Billboard at the End of My Street, which is a segment sponsored by Super Optimal, which is design intelligence for out of home. It's an AI system that helps understand posters and their potential effectiveness, which is really cool. But what have you got for us for the Billboard at the End of My Street, or as we may have talked about just before, the Billboard at the End of Your Block? If you just
at the end of my block, this is the one I've come across recently that I want to. Well, I have to say I've changed the brief.
Of course,
it's typical, isn't it? No, the brief's shite. So I don't have a billboard at the end of my street, actually, funny enough. But I understand the question. No, I was in New York last week. for the opening of a wonderful thing called The Lighthouse, which is started by Whaler, which I am chairman of, which is a creator company. And the idea of The Lighthouse is a cross between a kind of a WeWork and an art school, where for creators can go there and they can run their business from there, but they can also learn a lot more about being a creator. So, which is a great idea,
Fantastic.
Absolutely brilliant. Anyway, so there I am in New York, and I think it was called R. Matthews, which is a fish delivery system, a service in New York to restaurants. So it's professional, and it has the greatest end line on the back of the lorry, which is "Eat fish, live longer." And I kind of go, you know, when you get that thing where people kind of say, you've got to write an end line. You go, oh, God, here we go. I mean, 90% of them are absolute garbage. I mean, occasionally there are great ones, like, you know, think different, or, you know, the future's bright, the future's orange, or Vorsprung durch Technik even.
Fun, yeah.
But I love this one because of the absolute clarity of the claim. There is no doubt what it is selling. Eat fish, live longer. I mean, it's kind of wonderful.
And this is on the back of their delivery truck.
And it's on the back of their delivery trucks. And I just thought it was just absolutely wonderful, you know, as opposed to the opposite could be smoke cigarettes and die younger.
Yeah.
Couldn't it? You could do the opposite.
Although that's quite a good line.
I mean, we obviously use this segment to talk about what's happening in our industry at the moment, everything you've been seeing, you remember from episode 26. But so you, having just been in New York, it's obviously it's a patchwork quilt of advertising in the out-of-home space. What, did you see anything else out there that caught your eye? I
didn't. To be absolutely honest with you, I was literally there 2 days.
Right, okay.
I mean, it was madness, in and out.
Have you seen anything here?
I haven't. You know, I think we're still trying to work out what to do with billboards now, because of course now they're all digital, and I feel the kind of billboards, posters, as we call them, that we created, they need now to be different. The medium has changed. And I think technology always has an impact on creativity, always has done, which is what makes it exciting. And I haven't yet seen somebody use this facility that the message can change every 10 seconds or 15 seconds or whatever it is. And I think that's the next big stage in this. I keep looking at them and I can see people are kind of torn between just doing a classic poster and or doing something that has a bit more information on it because they think it's an information board as opposed to a poster. I mean, the number of posters I see where there's far too much information on there that nobody is ever going to read.
Do you, because one of your things I remembered working with was, you know, your mantra of reduce, which I still sit by today. But do you think some brands recently have they reduced too much? Because there's a debate about British Airways with, you know, no logo. There's the KFC work. There's McDonald's. There's been this sort of quite modern debate, which we know is not modern because, you know, brands like Silk Cut did it years ago. They didn't need a logo. Have you got a point of view on that? Do you feel it's?
I think you see that the world seems to be divided into two parts here. You have certain campaigns which have a wonderful assumptiveness to them, which is, I think, the British Airways campaign, which actually I quite like. I mean, I like that kind of, I'm going to make you work at it. And you have to work it out, which I think is really good, and we're talking about it. And then you get the other end, which is where it's almost, you know, you've been handed a list of things that have got to go into the poster, and some designer kind of puts them all in. Yeah. And you don't get that sort of sense of, you know, we're trying to make a poster work in the sense of getting you to look at it and think about it and provoke. And I think we seem to lack that. We seem to lack this provocation in some way or another. I think the other problem is we're seeing less and less of long-running campaigns. And, of course, the advantage of a long-running campaign is that you enter into a dialogue with your audience. And then that dialogue becomes more interesting and more intriguing. And, you know, you create a community around it. And those things we seem to have lost that.
And do you think that's just, is that a time and effort thing, or is it brands not wanting to have longer conversations? Where do you think that's coming from?
I feel it's a case of where brands have kind of fallen into that trap that technology companies say to them is that you've got to keep feeding the machine,
fresh, yeah.
And you've got to keep something different to keep people's attention. Well, of course, they would say that, wouldn't they? Because that's what they need, not necessarily what a brand needs. And
if you liken that back to what we were talking about with Traitors, with the appointment to view stuff, they obviously from a program perspective and a programming perspective, they've got a great story that they can release an episode every week and know that people are going to be there. The same can be said for advertising. If you've got a good enough brand story and you've got a good enough communication metric, whether that's a billboard or a podcast or a TV show or TV commercials, people will make an appointment to watch.
It was interesting, actually. This is about, I have to say, this was pre-COVID, actually, so this goes to show how long ago it was. A very good friend who was working with Land Rover, Range Rover, and we were chatting about it, and he was in charge of their digital output. And we were talking about life in general, and he said, "No, I've got to go now. I can't stay for a drink because, we've got to get back. I've got to get some more material to put online because you've got to be on all the time." Yeah. And I didn't say anything, and I kind of walked away from it and said, "Why? Why do you have to?" I thought to myself, "Why do you have to be on all the time?" And you can't be on all the time and be good. You can't. It's just an impossibility. And also, I don't actually buy a Range Rover and Land Rover every other day. And I just thought to myself, why is that? That's because the tech,
the algorithms
are saying this is what you've got to do. And I thought, well, the Bond franchise isn't on every day, and that, if you think about it, I always try and think about what other people do, not necessarily what other brands do. And I've always used the Bond franchise as an example of how brands should behave, because if you think about it, 1962, the first movie appears. I don't know how much the brand was worth then, 20 million, something like that. Got no idea. It's just recently sold for 1.5 billion or something. So huge growth. Well, same end line, License to Kill, same piece of music. Dun, 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 dun. I won't do it, but it'll embarrass you. And the same story to a certain extent. Yeah. But what they brilliantly do is they constantly refresh. And, they haven't done, it could be License to Thrill now. Actually, we can't say kill anymore. We can't, and let's have, 008 and 008 and a half or something. No, it's 007. And you develop a relationship with that brand. And I think brands are forgetting that. They're not developing a relationship with their audience because they're listening to what the tech people are telling them. The algorithm, drive it. And it's nonsense.
Yeah, and social has a big part to play in the way that modern advertising works, obviously. But I think it has also affected how people perceive digital out of home on screens, because we're now seeing stuff that's been shot for social moved to digital out of home, which is a different medium. And we're seeing in the old days when we first started the digital out of home revolution 25 years ago, we were seeing it adapted from TV ads to work in digital out of home. So neither of which are posters, and you don't capture attention in the same way.
Just to wrap it up, I think to your point, I agree in that there are some pieces of work you look at digital out of home, you go, well, that's pretty good. That's getting there. But there's not a consistency, because 9 times out of 10, I'll be working on a brief in places as a freelancer, and they'll say, oh, we're just going to use a bit of the footage from the TV. And you go, but that's not fit. You wouldn't put a press ad on television. So,
Words on wheels, we used to call that.
Words on wheels.
Anyway, so John, we're going to pick certain areas within the 100, and if you get bored, just move us on, because it's fascinating talking about some things and not others. We're going to start.
And we've sort of grouped them up a bit, haven't we? We've started to think about how the themes of advertising and the outdoor space work.
Yeah, and this is one. So we can start with slow. Well, I like a timeline. This is number 100, so I thought I'd start at number 100 because it's Beans means Heinz. Yeah, this is what all my friends sort of take the piss out of me and say, is that what you do all day? Just write Beans means Heinz. So it's not for anyone who's listening. But how do you feel about slogans? We've got a few at the top here.
I think they're brilliant. I mean, we talk about slogans. They're kind of, all art, literature has used slogans in some shape or form. They didn't call them slogans, to be or not to be. That is the question.
Right, okay.
Come on, that's a pretty good slogan. If you wanted to call it that. Shakespeare, I don't think, would probably say, well, I wasn't writing it as a slogan. Or, the Romans conquered the world with Veni, Vidi, Vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. So this idea of a slogan has been the base of literature, sound bites you can call them, that have captured people's imagination, and I think they're always there. The question is, are they good? That's the big issue we have, is that almost 99% of them are absolute rubbish, and they're instantly forgettable. And
how do we define? If it stood the test of time, is that a barometer for the success of a slogan? Beans means Heinz. People remember it.
Yeah.
Right.
What value? The brand has got huge value. Why it isn't using that today, no idea. But anyway, they'll have a point of view about that. But I think you want it to have a kind of meaning. And so much has no meaning. It's bland.
Yeah.
It could be applied to anyone.
Yeah.
It could be, you could take that off that brand and put it on another brand, and you wouldn't know, it wouldn't make it, even in a different category, So, there are various things you have to, can you own this? Does it say something? Drink a pint of milk a day kind of implies a health kind of benefit.
Yeah.
It's frothy man tells you something about the brand. So, you've got a piece of information there as opposed to a bland. It's today's, tomorrow, here, now, for you.
Yeah.
And all that kind of, the future's here now and it was yesterday.
There was one I thought actually I should have put in here, which is, of course, should have gone to Specsavers, because that's something.
Should have gone, brilliant. Should have gone to Specsavers.
I mean, that comes up a bit later on.
And you can see, actually, that's a great example of a kind of, they've constantly driven that, and they now have a relationship with their audience, and when something happens they can do a topical ad around that, and everybody gets it. I get that.
But it's also another example, sort of jumping around a bit, but it is another one that sits in the Venn diagram of a long-running campaign that they've invested in and not decided to veer away from, and it's unbelievable actually how long that's been going. It must be one of the longest current running lines.
Yeah,
there is. We're going to move on to number 20 in the charts, John. I don't know if this is a bit low for Levi's, but we're going to talk about initially the Black Sheep billboard you did with Barbara Noakes.
Yes, indeed.
Just for listeners who haven't listened to the John Hegarty episode, I can't imagine there's any, but could you just briefly tell us how it came about and how it became the sort of the mantra, I suppose, of your agency?
It's yes, it was we just won Levi's, and they came to us and they said, we've urgently got to have a campaign. We've booked a whole load of posters. We're launching black denim, and so we need a poster for it. We've got to have something fairly quickly because with copy dates coming up and all those sorts. Anyway, so that was the brief, and so we sort of came up with the idea that, black denim is obviously a difference. You have to stand out with it. And so we came up with a black sheep in amongst a whole load of white sheep going one direction and the black sheep going in the other direction, with the line, when the world zigs, you zag. And I always remember we went to Levi, presented it, and they were horrified because they where are the picture of the jeans? And we said, well, people know what a pair of jeans looks like, what we want to.
The logo's on it. People know.
Well, they don't often think like that, and they sort of went, but we, there isn't a bit, and we said, you don't have to worry. We just want to emphasise black. That's it, and what that means. You stand out from the crowd. Anyway, because the copy date was looming.
Brilliant for one.
They come in, oh my God, we've got to buy this. But we've hired these new lunatics and they haven't put a
and was this very early in the BBA?
It was the first piece of work we did for them. I mean, literally, we won the account in, I think it was something like June, July or something. And they literally came to us and said, a week later, we've got to have this. So anyway, we convinced them to put it up. They put it up reluctantly.
Right.
And what happened was that got a huge response.
Yeah.
And Robert Haas, who is the great-grandson of the founder of Levi's, saw it, had it framed, put in his office, and said, that's what this company should always be about. And so to thank us for forcing them to do it, because it was we were a European, had the European brief, so to speak. They gave me a black sheep that sat in my office. And then the great thing about it was that we then adopted the black sheep as our logo. And there's a lovely little story here, because we didn't instantly have a black sheep as our logo. And it wasn't until
'cause you had the signatures, didn't you?
We had signatures, yeah.
I remember.
Because it was on a dotted line.
That's right.
We've signed on a dotted line.
I remember that.
And it was when we were moving from Great Pulteney Street to Kingley Street. It was Nigel and I was having a meeting with the architects. And I always remember it was late in the evening. It was about 6:30 or something, late meeting. And I said to them, when we moved to to Kingley Street, I want a big flag going down saying Bartleby. Right. And they said, no, sorry, you can't do that. Planning regulations won't allow you to do it. I mean, what? And they said, but you can put your logo up there. And we went, Nigel and I went, we're an advertising agency. We don't have a logo. A stupid thing to say, but that's what we said. And anyway, the meeting ended. And Nigel, I always remember it. And we had these big steps that went down to reception. He left the building. And the architect was walking in front of us. And Nigel and I looked at each other and we actually do have a logo. We constantly talk about the black sheep. Right. Yeah, that's our logo.
So the black sheep was already in conversation. You'd always you'd refer to yourself.
Refer to a bit of a black sheep or that. It hadn't been, we had sort of seen it as a kind of an identity that we were part of. And we literally got to the bottom of the stairs. We said, yeah, we've got a logo. It's a black sheep. You can put that outside the office. Brilliant. And it's still out there.
So
So the point about that is,
go on.
And it makes a big point about your own creativity. You define yourself by what you do. We didn't sit down and go, BBH needs a logo. What are we going to do? Right. It was defined by a piece of work we had done. Literally, my maths is pretty bad, but that's about 12 years after we did it.
Wow.
But there's the other thing about the poster, which I kind of relented. I didn't want the line when the world zigs zag on it.
Right.
I just thought it should just say Black Levi's. And I kind of... Barbara wanted the line on it. I just thought it was unnecessary.
Right.
On the sense of, I don't need to say when the world zigs zag.
Because the image is doing the job.
The image makes you work at it. And anyway, as you can see, I lost that debate.
So is it true, John, because I think you told us before, on the day of the shoot, of course, the sheep did all go the same way. And did you have to use a model?
No, that was just done on CGI, as we'd call it now.
Yeah.
But the farmer, we went up to Wales to shoot it. And the farmer was something like that, anyway. And the farmer said, actually, we showed him that, he said, if you did that, or if you tried to do it, the sheep would die.
Right.
Because it would be traumatized. It would just absolutely sheep do what they are supposed to do, which is all go in the same direction. The idea of one going in the opposite direction for them would be terrifying. Yeah.
This is brilliant. Brilliant. Right, so because we're in the world of Levi's, we just want to talk about where you see that the black sheep sort of sitting amongst the pantheon of others, because we've just brought up a few other campaigns and whether you had a favourite. So I'm just going to flick through.
That was Rosie Arnold did
Rosie
that.
Arnold, the
original Shrink to Fit.
With Will and Nadav Kanda shot them.
That's
and then
right,
we've got the incredible Richard Avedon campaign.
Yeah.
I like them best.
That was actually not a poster, although...
No.
It should have been.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's a campaign you could run today. I like them best just before they fall apart. It's got so many philosophical thoughts within it, which is a brand talking the truth. This is how people actually refer to their product. I like them best just before they fall apart. You're showing somebody who's pretty scaggy looking, but actually quite interesting. And it's a truth.
Yeah.
And I think advertising is at its best when it tells the truth.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that most people think advertising's task is to sort of paint over the truth and lie.
No, the
also,
truth is the thing that makes the greatest advertising.
The truth also because they're handwritten, which we'd never really seen before because, it wasn't very polished, was it?
Martin Galton and Will Audrey did that. And I remember they came in with the idea and Gwyn Jones was the account director on it, and they came to show me the campaign. And they'd done it, and the type was very neatly done.
Right.
And I looked at them, and I said to Martin, who was a wonderful, wonderful art director, I said, Martin, this is complete shit. It's a good idea, but it's shit piece of art direction. Fuck off and come back with something really good. And he was so annoyed. He was so upset. And he went out and he got out a pencil. He said, right, I'll show fucking Hegarty. And he came back in with it and I went, that's genius. Love it. And he was right. He was right to do that.
Was it that quick as well? Was it 10 minutes later?
Virtually that quick, yeah. But Martin got very, very, very annoyed.
It's so fresh, though, isn't it? When you look at it, it feels like someone has just done it.
Yeah.
And then we're just looking at a couple more. They're what the gardener... they're what the gardener wears.
This was an anti-campaign, showing the opposite of what you are. I'm not sure in the end...
Mary Ellen Mark was
the photographer. Great. Yeah. Photographs. I'm not sure in the end I really love that. It goes against, although I did understand it at the time, but for me it was not.
Yeah.
The product should be the hero.
Yeah.
And there you've got an attitude.
Yes.
That is sort of not the product.
Yeah, it doesn't quite do what that does it? No. And then more originals never fit. There was a couple here we liked.
Yeah.
And then there was Stay Pressed.
And Stay Pressed.
And the Stay Pressed I love because, again,
Stay Pressed is amazing.
The whole point of that was the Stay Pressed product. And it could only work for that product. And that, in my view, makes it really, really work incredibly well.
Yeah. No, there was lots more in there we could put up, but we wanted to just maybe pick one or two to discuss. We're going to stick with BBH now. We're going to talk about BBH of 2025. Dan and I have done many episodes featuring BBH's work. Felipe came in and Helen Rhodes came in before that, and we had great talks, and we featured so much of their work. They've been our agency of the year 2 years running, with a lot of great work from Tesco's, Burger King, F&F, Audi, to name a few. How do you feel it stacks up, the work currently coming from BBH now versus where it was? Do you have any feelings sort of,
well,
it's always good.
I have a great admiration for the agency. I think it's in a very, very difficult market.
Yeah.
Is holding up a kind of torch to what should be done and how it should be done. So, I have absolute admiration for how they're fighting their way through a kind of lack of belief in long-term campaigns that are assumptive, that have confidence. And I think they're doing that brilliantly. Yeah. Great advertising was never easy, but it was easier for us when we were doing it. There's no question about that. When you look at, just look at, you don't need me to tell you, the lack of awareness now of advertising. All the research shows there's a lack of appreciation of it. People don't like it.
Yeah.
We're creating a product that they want to ignore and delete. Yeah. And I think it was easier for us. We were in an era when people looked at advertising as culturally important. It literally was. It was part of the cultural debate. That no longer happens.
Yeah, you mentioned now it feels like brands are stalking you. I remember you said that, and I think that is like you said, it's just I think Neil said it the other day. We are online and we can't see the thing we want because there are 5 advertising things you have to get out of the way.
Yeah,
and they're all shit. And the good stuff, there is still the good stuff, but that taints us, doesn't it? And
I think advertising has become all pervasive. Yes, there's a lot of advertising around. When we were doing it, you used to have that thing about you were exposed to sort of, 1,000 messages a day. And today I think somebody says it's something like 10,000. God knows how they measure it. But anyway, and it's become pervasive. And I think, everything has its place, and I think we are in a world where it's constantly imposing, and I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
We always used to say that with TV, we're very lucky we have the BBC, because ITV has to compete with the quality of the BBC programmes. And therefore the advertising in turn has to kind of compete with that quality. So the fact that there was a non-advertising medium in TV actually benefited the quality of advertising. And I think we should forget that. And today what's happened is that you've got so much stuff out there that, people are just shoving out any piece of garbage they can put out there.
Yeah.
No, I agree. If you look at you've just been the US, but if you ever sat in your hotel room to flick the TV on and watch the TV advertising in the US, it's absolutely appalling. And I agree with you. I think the quality of TV advertising here is much better. And I'm not saying it's great because of the thousands of channels you now have access to, and stuff is obviously made for pre-roll, put on TV on the weird and wonderful channels.
Yeah.
But on the main terrestrial TV channels, TV advertising is of a high quality, and I think you're right. It's because of the programming.
Yeah, I think that level of quality has diminished enormously.
And you think that's because it's made for?
I think there are two things. I think what's happened is the way TV minutage now works is that there was a maximum of 7 minutes an hour, and what the TV companies did is they said to Ofcom, but we will do it 7 minutes an hour over the 24-hour period, but we will load it in peak time so that we get more for peak time. And therefore, you get more ads at sort of 8 o'clock in the evening, literally 15 minutes worth of advertising.
Yeah.
Because they've been able to load it. And I think that's a big mistake, because it's now become so invasive. Even when the ads are good, I'm forgetting what I'm watching. And I remember watching, when I was in the States, and it would be a break literally every 8 minutes.
They have 19-minute shows for a half an hour show, right?
Yeah.
That's how the breaks are
So
set in the TV
That's
show.
how much advertising there is. And there comes a moment when it's just too much.
Yeah.
And I think we are dangerously close to that. And I think that's one of the reasons why people are turning off commercial television. They're killing the goose that lays the golden egg.
We're going to just stay one last piece on BBH, and we're going to talk about Boddingtons at number 65. So we know these aren't posters. They were the back of magazines, but they were like mini billboards as it was planned. Do you remember the moment when this happened? Obviously, the Cream of Manchester is an amazing, brilliant idea. But then when did the media piece come in? Was it when we had Cramner and Kev Brown in the building? Can you recall?
Yeah, it was a brilliant piece of media thinking. It started with Kevin Brown.
Yeah.
And Kev said, we were going to do some ads. And he said, look, what wouldn't it be great if we only bought back covers of magazines? Funny enough, actually, he said they're not the most valued media in a magazine. I always thought they were, but apparently they're not. And he said, but treat the back cover as though it's a poster, so that when the research they had was when somebody had a magazine and it had been around for a week, they kind of didn't want you to know, that's a week old. And if the ad on the back was good, they would turn it over so it would be on the back.
Brilliant.
I mean, just a great piece of knowledge but creative thinking in terms of media. And he said, so therefore, if you create a poster idea on the back of a magazine and it's really good, it'll get turned over and you'll get more media exposure. That was the idea. And it was a genius thought. And I can remember that we actually then got an ad on the BBC because there was some programmer, whatever it was, and drama, and the husband had gone out and bought some newspapers and he slammed them down on the table, and the Boddingtons ad was on the back and you could see it clearly. And it worked. So we got, that piece of thinking.
But it's so brilliant because it's a brilliant campaign as well. If the ad on the back was crap, you'd go, oh, well, that's...
Yeah, people wouldn't turn it over and they wouldn't look at it.
No. And just to surmise, because this is something I wanted to quote to you, John, I found this the other night, and this is obviously as part of the entire Boddington's campaign. I want to read this quote. There's a possibility that ad agency Bartle Hegarty's Cream of Manchester ad campaign, which ran from 1991 until 1999, is responsible for the transformation of that city. Stuart Jeffries. I mean, you're transferring brands, you're transferring cities. I'd never seen that before.
I hadn't seen that before either. But,
so, Stuart, thank you for that. It was in 2019, but
2019, I didn't see that. Oh, that's
but it might.
Well, thank you, Stuart. I should send him a note and say you're absolutely right.
Yes.
We're going to jump forward into something we touched on earlier, and you said there's kind of you feel like there's a lack of these at the moment, the long running campaigns. So we've grouped together some of the campaigns that we'd like to talk about that are in the top 100 that are long running. They're things that you mentioned it earlier. You can have a sustained brand conversation with a bunch of consumers while they're out and about in this case. So we're going to start with Silk Cut, which is a classic, I think, for certainly in the UK for its poster advertising. As the rules changed, so did its advertising. Yeah,
I think it was a brilliant campaign. It was actually Charles Saatchi's idea. That's right. And of course, there's a famous artist who I've now forgotten his name. He used to just do canvases and he'd slice them.
That's right. Yeah.
And I have actually forgotten his name, which is terrible.
We'll find out.
And it was Charlie who said, why don't we it's called Silk Cut, get a piece of silk and slash it. And that's the campaign. And again, it's that lovely thing of assumptiveness, confidence, and people buy confidence. And it's asked you to work it out. And in fact, the smoking causes cancer line is kind of essential for you to understand what it's about because it's smoking.
And this came about because of the change in advertising, or you weren't allowed to advertise the brands anymore. You weren't allowed to.
It was more than that. You weren't allowed. Well, it started with Gold Box, which is in the 70s, and the authorities. This is a typical example of where they get it completely wrong. The authorities decided that you could not use in cigarette advertising any image of aspiration. So there was a terrible I think it was Rothman's, the International Passport to Smoking Pleasure. Blimey, I can remember it, and I'm not even a smoker. And it was terrible. And it would be a hand reaching for the cigarettes, and it would be like an airline pilot, and they said, you can't have this. It's, aspirational and it's terrible. And so they banned all images like that, not realizing everybody thought the thing was as naff as hell, and actually wouldn't convince anybody young to smoke because it was so pathetic and cliched. And so they brought in all these rules, and therefore Colin Dickinson Pierce, who had the Benson Hedges account and did the Gold Box advertising, they actually did quite nice ads for Gold Box. They said it was about pure gold. And they said, can't do that anymore because that's aspirational. And then it allowed them to come up with this completely surreal campaign. And of course, what happened is the authorities went, yeah, that's fine, because, they didn't understand.
Because they didn't get it.
They didn't get it at all. But everybody else kind of got, this is really cool and different and distinctive. So the very act of censorship of these kind of so-called aspirational images, not allowing you to use that, allowed the agency to go to the client and say, you've got to do something very different. And the client had to do it. And in turn created a now very, very famous campaign. And so then Silk Cut was a follow-on from that. Yeah. I think that was the 80s, Silk Cut.
And it sort of epitomises that another thing you always used to say to me, and which is... so just a little plug here for my book, because I remember the book, when I wrote the book about the park, I was struggling. They were short stories, but I think when I worked out they all had to be in the park. It's the thing you said, out of restriction comes creativity.
Yes, of course.
And so that has stayed with me ever since. So they restricted them, and they went, right, okay, off we go. And it's a great example of that, isn't it?
Isn't it just? It is just fantastic. I mean, again, by and large why censorship is usually useless and it gets the wrong end of the stick. I'm by and large against censorship, and you can see how it perverts the needs of the audience that you're talking to. And that's a wonderful example of that.
Fast forward into the 2020s and we're advertising in the out-of-home space in particular is being affected by the HFSS
high-fat sugar
restrictions.
Salt. Yeah.
So high-fat, sugar, salt products can't be advertised in proximity to where young people may hang out, which, effectively rules out much of the out-of-home estate in the UK. Lots of the Coca-Cola company and PepsiCo, they've effectively switched off their sugar advertising and moved to their no sugar variants for all of the advertising they do.
Yeah.
Is that how they get round it?
They just go. They advertise.
So here's our
no or zero or whatever it is, or
And
I think that's slightly different. That's where, because I would agree we shouldn't allow cigarette advertising, and I think trying to encourage people to eat healthier foods is important, but that's a slightly different reason rather than trying to control the content of your advertising message. And that's where it goes horribly wrong. But it's quite right. You're not allowed to sell Armalites, on bazookas for sale this weekend.
The other thing on censorship that has hit the news recently is some of the Ricky Gervais stuff that's come out. Have you followed any of that?
I see some of his things, and he's wonderfully provocative, which I thoroughly enjoy. And it's that, he talks a lot about people are offended by what he says. Well, it's you're offended. That's your problem, not mine. He's not encouraging people to go and be violent. He's not encouraging people to go and attack other people. He's just challenging points of view. And I think he's perfectly entitled to do that. And I think we are seeing an intolerance today that language, the way you use language, some people are objecting to it. And I view them as the new Taliban. They are, that's what the Taliban are doing in Afghanistan. They're saying you can't do this.
You can't say that.
You can't say. And we've got a similar group here saying the same thing. For instance, this was very funny. It was about a year ago now. And I was called up by a producer of the BBC and they were going to do a program on denim. And the history of denim, and naturally you kind of get a phone call and they wanted to talk about how you sell denim. And, it was very nice. Had a lovely conversation with the lady. And we were talking about ideas and how ideas can be very simple, but it's how you execute them. It's that whole thing about, advertising's 80% idea, but it's also 80% execution. And I described the laundrette commercial, which was the one that was most successful for Levi's. And I said, it's a very simple ad. A guy goes into a laundrette, puts some stones into a machine, takes his clothes off down to his boxer shorts and sits next to a great big fat man. And she said, oh, you can't say that. And I said, what? Fat. And I said, what? Well, how? And I didn't, because I was so shocked by this. So I couldn't describe this person as fat. So I went to so I should have said clinically obese or exceedingly large, which wouldn't have been accurate. Fat is an accurate description. And you've got that sort of, so if you can't say fat, you can't say thin, obviously. Yeah. And then you can't say medium. How dare you describe me as medium? Or average. I'm not average. I'm exceptional. You can see how you go down these rabbit holes with these people. Are you trying to be offensive? No, I was trying to be accurate. He was a very, very fat man. And that was part of the joke. He said I hadn't moved and he just turned and looked at him. But you've got this kind of, I'm going to be offended. I have decided certain words are not acceptable because I have decided. And that's a kind of censorship. And as I say, I disapprove of censorship. As long as you're not encouraging violence, but part of what makes us succeed is we challenge all the time.
A very good friend of mine is a broadcast video director, and he works for a very big entertainment company in the US. I'm not going to mention them or him by name.
Disney.
But
Yeah, I reckon.
No, we don't know. We don't.
It could be Comcast.
It
Who
could
knows?
be. Who knows?
He is constantly fighting the internal police about what talent they can use, what stories they can tell. They tell real life stories, and he said it's a constant thing, to the point that they'd shot an entire half-an-hour documentary piece for the brand that was going out on internal channels as a training piece, and they used some talent she was a free thinker, and she spoke her mind, and it got through their internal censorship, and they said, sorry, you can't run this. And she was in every single scene. They had to bin $250,000 worth of production.
Yeah.
Someone said someone might get offended by that.
I think that's the sign of a decline of a culture. I think a culture declines when it begins to not challenge itself. And I've always said irreverence is a very powerful force within creativity, because it encourages you to challenge. It encourages you to sort of look at an idea and say, no, I don't accept that. I'm going to come up with something different, and I'm going to challenge it in a way which makes you think. I mean, art has used that hugely. I mean, the Dadaïsts were challenging the authority of that created the First World War. Pop art challenged the idea that art was something that only reflected certain images. That they said you could take a tin of a Campbell's soup of a tomato soup and present that as art. Yeah. And I think irreverence is hugely powerful. And when a culture begins to sort of draw back from that, it doesn't open up debate. It doesn't open up conversation. And this idea that I am offended has become a tool to stop debate. And I think that's terrible. And I think, I haven't seen a little bit. What I have seen of Ricky Gervais is he challenges that. And I love it. I love the fact that he's doing that. And as I say, that irreverence has helped create great art and great communication and great thinking.
And bringing that back to long-running campaigns, if you look at things like Silk Cut, which have doubled down on, over the years, doubled down on that irreverence and still managed to prick the consciousness of their audience and produce great work. We
were just going to quickly show a bit. I just thought this last night, LWT. This was because it's a very long running campaign that Trot's GDT did, and I wanted to recall with you, John, whether you remembered how they got away with it, because they printed. They seem to be full colour ads, but at the time what they did is they just printed the outside colour once and they changed the inside. Do you recall that? Because that's another, a bit like Boddington's, extremely clever thought around media to get you out there, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was a brilliant campaign. Go Green is Trot, and it was very much Dave's kind of baby, but obviously lots of people then worked on it. But I think the other great thing about it was it used posters in a very topical way, which was kind of not the way you used a poster. You used a poster as a kind of part of reflecting a long-running campaign. It would take 4 weeks to print and another 2 weeks to put up. But they managed to find a way of doing it so that it really had a topicality to it. So I think literally they used to post them on a Monday. Yeah. And so you'd come back into work, you'd be coming back into work or whatever, and up would be the new LWP.
It's still the in charges are still Monday and out of home. It's like a legacy thing. It's still there. Oh, when's it running? There are 2 Mondays in every month where they start for
apparently
a 2-week
rotation.
rotation.
Gordon Smith, the art director, who said, "Let's print," because I just read it on Dave Dye's podcast. Dave Dye.
Oh right, yeah, lovely.
Dave Dye's is great, and he got Steve Henry and Paul Grubbin and a few others, I think, to talk through it. And they said that they just printed a load of the outside and just had them ready. So but competitors couldn't work out how they were getting it. It's just so clever. I remember at Watford College we were taught this about, don't just think creatively on your ideas. Think about
the medium.
Yeah. Right.
Just on that though, do you think? You just remind me, and we did talk about this on episode 26 with you, that the change in process for delivering posters and billboards. You can now have something printed 24-hour rush. It can go out the very next day. Do you think that's changed the craft of the poster for advertising creatives? Do you think that therefore they are more disposable than they were? Do you think, the effort that you put in, we're going to fly to Nice, we're going to do a 2-week shoot, we're going to get the right image, we're going to then go into post on it, the line's going to be correct, it's going to the printers 4 weeks before it goes out, and then it's going to be pasted up on the day. Those days are over because there's more out there.
I think you're absolutely right. I think you sense the value that goes into something. You don't, somebody doesn't really know, but in the back of their mind, they'll know that posters aren't changed instantly, and they'll think, "Oh, that's gone up. That was very quick." They won't necessarily understand, but there'll be a kind of resonance coming from the poster and the effort that's gone into it, and I think that is a part of the appreciation. And we call that craft, don't we? That's kind of, it comes under craft. I mean, I always talk about the Sistine Chapel. Michelangelo was the first great media man because he painted God on the ceiling, so he had to look up. He didn't put him on the wall. He had to look up, and there was God. and everybody knows how long that took to make, and it remains as a great testament to belief in the church and the creation of humankind. So you are aware of those things. And I think today, the fact that it's instantly disposable, the fact that it's instantly, you kind of, in a way, you probably value it less. So therefore, the creative execution, this is what I was saying to start with, has to acknowledge that. And has to go, now, how do we get you to re-engage, knowing that this message could change instantly? I'm just press of a button.
Yeah.
It's like, I always think, you look at, say, Lord of the Rings, and you go, and you watch it, and you go, how many orcs do you want? I don't know, 500,000? I can give you 1 million with the switch of a button. And there's that sort of sense of, you lose the sort of drama. How did they do that? Those old great movies when they had battle scenes and you go, my God, that's amazing. You really feel you're there. Yeah. Whereas today you lose a little bit of that because I know with CGI I can just twist a button and I can have another 100,000 if I want. And that's a craft issue.
Yeah.
The craft changes.
That's why I really love the BA campaign, the latest one, because it was done by 4 photographers who were commissioned to take those shots, and it was slavish. They really, really did it, and I can feel it. And someone put a post up on LinkedIn, of course, about it, and sort of fucked around with it a bit, so it didn't quite look like it was. And then everyone started jumping in. But you're going, yeah, but you're talking about it now, aren't you? You're not talking about some crap press app.
Yeah. What was the last time you talked about a piece of advertising?
It's the same as going to a museum of modern art with someone who won't appreciate it and say, well, I could have done that. But you didn't.
Right, you didn't. Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem. Because if they say again, well, it's just it's not just, Dan talked about the feeling of, when you're coming down into a city, the feeling of anticipation and spotting things and thinking, I'm nearly there. I mean, I'm getting a bit of a tingle now thinking about going over places and thinking, what's happening down there? I mean, I know it's the flip of the looking out the window, but they are putting stuff on the street, which it looks like nothing else. And you've got to admire that and go, wow, it doesn't look anything else. When you see that, I remember seeing Steve McQueen's the year 3 project, where it's just the children and their classrooms, and they were lined up like the football team. And I remember being on a tube platform, and I was drawn to it because it didn't have a logo, it didn't have a headline, it had a tiny thing, and I just couldn't stop looking at it because it wasn't like anything else. And I think that's what we should be doing, isn't it? You've got to get noticed.
Well, you've got to get noticed, and you've got to leave space for the viewer to kind of work it out and to be, because intrigue, the brain always wants to answer the question, what is going on here? And if you answer all the questions, the brain goes, fine, done that.
That's why we talk
I don't need to go any further.
We talk about involvement, don't we? like
Yeah.
engagement and involvement.
Yeah.
It's brilliant you've said that now, because we are going to go. I secretly know you really love this campaign, John, as do many of our listeners and readers. So it's The Economist.
I never read The Economist. Management trainee, aged 42.
So this is shockingly only number 7. But you know, that's the voting.
Well, I don't know. Everyone's mentioned it. They talk. I think this goes back to the long-running campaigns as well.
Yeah.
This is one where, because it was the open brief in the agency. This has been iterative, and the campaign has changed. But you always go back to it being a long-running campaign for The Economist.
When you saw this, did you? How did you feel? Because obviously it's had so many, like Dan's saying, many iterations.
Yeah.
But this is the thing that kicked off.
That's the one that kicked
I remember you said to me once about, this wasn't being frivolous, you said something like, it's easy to write the next Forex ad or the Heineken ad, the next one, or the next Boddingtons, but to write the first
one
is the absolute...
is the thing. There's a... I make strange analogy I'm making here. There's a famous rocket engineer, Werner von Braun, who came from the Nazis, and he established NASA. And the Americans got him out, didn't send him to Nuremberg. And I always remember him talking, and he said, with a rocket, it's the first 10 feet that are the hardest. Once you get beyond 10 feet, it gets easier and easier and easier, getting it off the ground. And it's the same with an advertising campaign.
Yeah.
That first one that shows you where it can go. And I think, obviously, this is what did that, but it's better than that. I think it contains lots of lessons in advertising. Firstly, they had been running a print campaign before this.
Right.
And you can see the argument, well, we're selling The Economist. It's a very, educated, well-written magazine. So we're going to have long copy, and we're going to honour the magazine. And they were doing ads like that. And suddenly somebody comes along and says, sorry, guys, we're going to be on posters. And you go, shit, but with The Economist, how do you explain The Economist on a poster? And that's the genius of it. That is the most brilliant example of the power of reduction. I can reduce it down to I think I've counted. I think in total it's 9 words. I never read The Economist, management trainee, aged 40 with a numeral.
Yeah.
And I think it's that makes it truly great. That it takes a complicated, very esoteric in a way magazine, The Economist, and it reduces it down to what it is actually about.
Do you think that when they came up with this poster, there was a sense in the agency that this is the first of many in this line?
No idea. You'd have to ask them, but often not. You kind of, I always think. I often used to have clients say to me, you present an idea and they'd say, well, where will it be in 4 years' time, John, or 3 years' time? And my honest answer was, I've got no idea, except I know we're on a very interesting road.
And so did you have that with things like with Audi and with Lynx? Inside BBH, was there...
You start on it. What you always want is you want to start on an interesting road. I'm on an interesting, really, path here, and it's going to open up. And the idea will open up as you get into it and you discover what it can do and what it can't do. And I think that's what this did. And obviously brilliantly branded, red, which is on the top of the magazine. You couldn't mistake it for anybody else. And it challenged you, which is what the magazine does. The magazine challenges you. So therefore, the advertising was at one with the product itself and established what it gave you. It gave you an advantage. And I think it's brilliant. If I'd done that, I think I'd have retired and said, I've done enough now. It was written by David Abbott.
Yeah. It's so funny if you unpack, you could probably do a whole episode with the way to unpack it. There's so much in there, but it's so succinct and so confident. I was just looking at it thinking, there's no logo on it really, is there? It's the masthead is,
It is the masthead.
I've just spotted, we're going on now going, oh, British Airways, look, they did it. We'll just...
But on the long-running campaign side of things, there's Jigsaw, there is the dinner parties, there are so many great lines in there.
Peter Suter's favourite one, this. And then this was I mean, hello to our readers and high offers was another.
Yeah. Great use of media, wasn't it? Again, we've lost that use of media, which I think is a great shame. I always say, I think Banksy is really will go down as one of the most significant artists of the 21st century. But because he uses walls as his canvas. Now, if he had done all that on a canvas and exhibited in a gallery, nobody would have bothered. It is because he puts them on walls. Media is a part of your message. And we've lost that in a way. We've lost it with digital social media because it just appears on a phone and there's no difference. And I think that's part of its loss. And I think when you look at things, trying to use where you are, how you are, what you're doing, we talk about referring to kind of cultural events and trying to use those in terms of kind of your advertising and using also the media where it is matters hugely.
As an art director, because I just want to ask you this before we move on from The Economist. So as a writer, you'd go, I just want to write a line for The Economist. My career, so many teams we've had on, have worked there, didn't get one through. But then as an art director, how did you feel? Because we're looking at Paul Belford's light bulb ad, and he came on the show and what he said, he thought, oh, bloody hell, Economist, headlines out of red. What's in it for me? And he decided to actively go, right, I'm going to see what I can do. When it started evolving, how did you feel? Did you like it, the way it became more visual, the way they played with it?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, I thought it was a typical example of you've developed a dialogue with your audience, and that dialogue, it gets more and more intense as it goes on and you're more involved in it. So just a brilliant campaign. There was a lovely Frank Delaney, novelist. I did something for him for the Book Publishing Association and talking about writing. And he said to me, we did this interview and I talked about how you could market books. I can't remember what I said at all, actually, but that doesn't matter. And at the end of it, when they were packing up the film crew, and he was a lovely man, and he just said to me, so John, he said, when are you going to write your book? And I said, well, no, Frank, I'm an art director and I work with a writer. I do pictures, they do words. And he stopped, he looked at me in a very quizzical way. And he said, but John, writing is just describing pictures, which is a wonderfully liberating way of talking about writing. And I think, when you talk about Paul Belford, the writer was really creating a picture, which is what writing is, because all writing is trying to do is create a picture in your head. And it was a lovely way of talking about writing. We always think it's got a narrative and you've got to do that. And he said, it's just describing.
You know what? That's inspired me to get back and start writing more about pictures for my next book.
I thought we'd jump into special builds because one of the things that we were just talking about, and I think it's quite appropriate, is interesting use of the media. Not that's not just a wall; it's an opportunity to do something slightly different. And going back to Paul Belford and the light bulb. I think I'm right in thinking that was the first time The Economist had done something special buildy, that, it was interactive. The light bulb went on as people walked past, and it was a 3D object stuck onto a billboard. Within our special builds over the years, we've seen some incredible work in the out-of-home space that turn a classic billboard into something that could live beyond the medium itself. If I think about some of the stuff in our top 100, there's O2 Oops, which was incredible. The Sundial, we've had the guys on from Chicago talking about Sundial. What do you think about special builds and the process? Are you a fan? Is it a stop and look? Is it just for LinkedIn fodder these days?
Is it just for awards? I'm sort of ambivalent. I mean, I think there's been one truly great one, which was for Araldite, when they stuck the car onto the poster and just said it also sticks handles. They also stick handles to teapots or something like that. But they put it on a stretch of motorway that on the going out towards the airport, the Westway.
Westway, yeah. Not
the way. Well, it wasn't the Westway. No. It was, anyway, it doesn't matter. And it incredibly busy, and therefore was going to be seen by thousands of people. And it really worked in that sense. So they did it in a place where there was going to get high volume of traffic. And also it was at the moment when the traffic slowed down with their traffic lights. So, and there was a famous line of posters there going out towards the Heathrow Airport. And in that I said,
Cromwell Road, was it?
Cromwell Road, that's it. And I think that worked brilliantly. Since then, we've seen lots of kind of people doing that, but they're on posters that nobody sees. I mean, I didn't, one of the things that I taught, the reason I went to art school, from art school to design school and then into advertising, and the attraction of advertising is you'd put something up and thousands of people would see it because it would be all over the country. That to me was a big turn on. Rather than I've done one poster and all my mates saw it and campaign covered it and it got an award at Cannes or D&AD or something. And I thought that's not the spirit of what it is we're doing. And I think if you talk to the people that we're trying to, I don't think they'd know about it. I don't think special builds are really great. But they would remember a great poster.
I don't know. I think... I don't know. I think the Pretty Polly legs, a 96 sheet on its end, there's the idea of changing one site in an interesting way to bring it to life, to get it, whether it's for PR purposes or for news. We've got one up there, the Marmite Dynamite, where the lid's flown off and crashed a car in front of it. Is hugely staged. It's for the photo, but it is a poster. I think now you're after attention, right? And if that attention comes from housing something in the real world and using that as a piece of media to seed across, to get attention elsewhere, then I think it's done its job. And for a brand to be involved in that it is dangerous, this stuff, because you can throw money at these things and they can do huge projects and they can go nowhere. I like the idea of challenging what a poster is, and I think things like Oops dropping it on its end, things like Pretty Polly standing a 96 sheet up the wrong way. I think there are versions of this that really are right for the brand and good for the medium.
We'll agree to disagree then, won't we? No, I understand the point you're making, but I think I've talked about Banksy as using the medium. I think it becomes a little bit kind of self-indulgent.
Okay.
That's my...
Navel-gazing.
Navel-gazing, yeah.
I think, sorry, just to add my 2 penneth in, and it's maybe a bit of a broader thing. I remember, in the sort of chase for awards and stuff, you can often do things which appear once, or it's a really clever
one-off stunt,
thing, which you go home and you say, "Mum, I did this," and you go, "Well, what is it, son?" And you get campaign posters out or something, and she goes, "Oh, okay, right, great." Whereas if you wrote Blackcurrant Tango, where it's Ray Gardner going,
Yeah,
I got a letter from a French exchange student. It's on everywhere. You're going. Yeah. I mean, that's the gold.
That's what I loved about it. That's what turned me on.
Yeah, right. We're going to move on. We've jumped a couple of topics because we've been having such a lovely time. We're going to just touch upon political posters. We're looking at possibly the most famous billboard. Labour isn't working from the Conservatives. How do you feel about political posters now and this poster, because there seems to be less of them now and they have less resonance? Is that, again, back to the debate we've been having about the technology and the way the outdoor world is, or is it actually also a reflection of, without getting too political, what they're offering? You know what I mean? Because there used to be a time when they would be on the news and there'd be a little curtain, hey, here it is, and it would be great, Tony Blair with the evil eyes and things. It just seems to be a lack of them at the moment.
Well, I think it's following what's happening to brands as well. I mean, we're increasingly struggling to find great campaigns on posters today. And I think politics has gone the same way. And you look at, Labour isn't working and just absolutely brilliant how it's resonated through time, 1978, 9, was it?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Still being copied today, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's just, talk about value for money in terms of the message is just incredible. And I think, political parties have suffered the same things as brands. They don't have a big idea that drives what they're about and consistently argues that idea and articulates that idea. And I think, 1978, I think it was, the Tories did. And it resonated because, everyone was going on strike and it was like that, and you felt the country was going down the tubes. Yeah. And it was just a brilliant line, Labour isn't working. Yeah. And just genius in its simplicity.
Yeah. We are going to skip on. We're just going to touch on tech because I know you and Dan talked about tech earlier. But at number 3, so we're getting close to the end now, is this British Airways piece. We talked about British Airways earlier quite a bit, but this is the look up, the magic of. How did you find this? Because I remember seeing this and being very jealous about the marriage of. Dan has this expression about technology for creativity's sake, and I thought this was a very good example of.
Yeah, I like that. I thought it was a really, really good campaign. And again, it captured something about the assumptiveness of an aeroplane, the assumptiveness of an airline and what they're offering, and the sort of, it was almost echoing back to the jet set, wasn't it? This kind of when flying was sort of glamorous and you were flying somewhere, and it was brilliant in that sense. My only argument is I think the brand didn't live up to the promise. And that is where I think there's a kind of slight failure there, but that's a very particular and critical comment.
You get those LinkedIn posts where going, well, they didn't look after my, you talk about the advertising, and then there is, like you say, if there is a disconnect, it does sour it a bit, doesn't it?
It does. And I think it's always hard that because, I've always thought, because we worked on British Airways for a time, and you realise the complications of running an airline, how many people you're flying each day, and one thing can go wrong and you get complaints and you get that and it goes all over the press. Nobody remembers the 500,000 other things that went right. So I think it's a very, very difficult category to operate in, and to kind of say something that somebody isn't going to object to in some shape or form. So I think you just have to be assumptive about it.
One of the great things about digital out of home and being able to react in live ways to tell a story is personified by this campaign. But I can remember doing the launch of Terminal 5 with BBH for British Airways, and a reactive campaign for that went all over London.
I remember this.
And it was talking about how quick and efficient it was in Terminal 5 to go through security, get your bags and all that kind of stuff. But it was a very, very simple image of people being reunited with their loved ones as they're coming into London. It was shot on location. Every day, photographers down there capturing a moment, being sent up to the war room at BBH. Someone would select an image. There was a line that went with it, and it was out the next morning saying, yesterday at T5, it took 6.2 minutes on average to get through security. Using real-time data, using reactive stuff, and creating topical ads every day for the 4 weeks of the flight.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of digital out of home.
Yeah.
And I think it's
good use of it.
It's just not used enough because the craft is not there. It's just like, we'll just chuck the weather up there. It's like, it's not, we don't need that.
I think you're right. And I think that's a very good example of what we initially talked about, which is we haven't yet really mined the needs of digital in terms of posters. We haven't really discovered how to make that work.
Yeah.
Because all creativity is trying to subvert in some way or another the medium it's in. Yeah. It's always, that's what makes it interesting. Mm-hmm. And here you've got an ability to subvert all kinds of issues. You've got movement, you've got change, you've got that. And you're not seeing it really being used. And, that's, I think, a great tragedy. And until we get to that, until people reinvest back into the poster as a means of communication that is profound, we won't really get great posters. We'll just get the usual kind of, I'll put an image up and we can change it every 15 seconds or wherever it is,
I think that's a good moment to finish the tech. I think we're gonna get to the end now. I was going to show you Benetton. I'm not.
Benetton, the advertising that killed the brand. Yes.
Well, I don't know if it's you or someone said, yeah, but how many cardigans did it sell? I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
I think less. For me, it was a very cynical piece of advertising, and I think that's why it didn't work. And I think it left people not feeling great. It wasn't. You could argue it was irreverent, but yes, you can be irreverent, but also you've got to include.
Yeah.
And that's the secret. And of course, humour plays a great part of that. And this took itself very, very, very seriously and over seriously. And there then was a disconnect between the advertiser and the advertising. And I think that damaged the brand. I mean, initially it started with quite interesting ideas, but then it went down further and further down a road and lost itself.
But shock tactics in general when advertising, what's your...
I think it depends how you define a shock. I mean, I think if you're, we worked a lot in our early days at Saatchi for the Health Education Council, and we did all kinds of, in a sense, shock advertising. Jeremy Sinclair's Pregnant Man, would you be more careful if it was you that got pregnant?
The fly shitting.
And the fly shitting on your food. And, we did, so if it's relevant, then yes, Volkswagen did Crashed Car with about a cell and that you're in this cell for your own protection. And it was relevant to what they were trying to say to you. You start with it has an integrity.
Yeah.
Great advertising has an integrity. It has a deep-seated belief in what it is saying, and it's trying to communicate something important and powerful for them. And they do it in a way which is true to that brand. What you tend to get is something that is irrelevant to the advertising. Benetton, I think, is an example of that, showing someone dying of AIDS. I mean, literally dying of AIDS. And you just go, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
You're denigrating, you're kind of defiling that person's last moment. Is that really the way to sell a cardigan to me or a jumper? Or I mean, like everything in life, it comes down to taste.
Yeah.
And you can't teach taste. You can't teach it. You've either got it or you haven't. And if you haven't got it, get out of advertising and become an accountant, because you don't need taste in an accountancy. You can just add it all up and it can be there.
We apologise if any accountants were offended by what
there are some wonderful accountants. I've worked with some absolutely lovely ones, and I adore working with them, but they know exactly what they're good at and why they do it.
Yeah. Right, we're on the penultimate slide, and it says the winner is, and John, we're going to give you the moment.
The golden envelope.
This is it.
I think you've already said it. John, could you announce our winner, please?
Yes, brilliant. I think it was. I was going to talk about that one, but but in the end, it kind of was a one-off.
The Araldite.
And then they did two cars stuck on top of each other. And that was, and you kind of go, I can see where you're going. Whereas with The Economist, it went on the most incredible journey of how to... It
evolved as well.
Evolved and intrigued me and kind of... But look, this was an utterly brilliant campaign.
Yes.
A brilliant poster, and where's the billboard? We call it a billboard, or we call it... I call them posters, you call them billboards.
And
doesn't matter.
We have to say this is, our top 100 is based on all of our guests who have come in, some in singles and pairs, and we ask everyone their top three posters. We do often, obviously, we've got the segment at the end of the show where we talk about our favourites. This is the one that consistently came up, and when we counted through the scores, this pipped.
It was quite staggering, actually, because, it's 43 years old.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, and you kind of go, well, you have to search to find it, and there aren't many great images of it. But somehow I think the demographic of our guests is very mixed still as well, because we try and get, we had Simcat on the other day. They're a very young all-female team from BBH, really on the cusp, brilliant. They talked about this in revered tones as much as, like Mark Tutzel or people like that, so it's, but back to your point originally, I do have a lot of sympathy about that kind of, it's a one-off, and it's a clue in the title, it's a special. Whereas when you talked so eloquently about The Economist there, so can we ask, and I think, again, I know where this is going, is The Economist your favourite billboard? You can have 3 if you want. But I'm sure you'll
well,
just
I would definitely put Erudite as one of the 3. I still, for me, I never read The Economist. Management trainee, age 42. I mean, just think, you're actually telling people not to read The Economist. I mean, I think it's got it's got huge depth in it. That does, but it is a kind of a trick, and I love it, and it's just brilliant. I wish I'd done it. That's one great way.
I think that's a good barometer for all of us who work in the industry.
Would you like to have done it? Yeah, most certainly.
That would be on the front page of my book.
Yeah, but I think I could put I never read The Economist up and talk to students about advertising and all the lessons that you need to learn, and that poster has them all.
And so from your over the work that you've presided over through the agency, through all of your career, which is the one that is on the front page of your book?
Well, it would be The Black Sheep.
Black Sheep.
Because it not only cemented our relationship with Levi's, they suddenly, my God, these people, we better start listening to these people because they're right. It also created a culture within BBH, and it gave us the Black Sheep.
But would you take the line off?
But I would. No, I've always said that. And actually, it didn't get into, it didn't win a poster. It didn't get into the posters.
Campaign posters.
Didn't get in. That, I never read The Economist, didn't get into D&AD as a poster. It got in as under typography. And I was chairman, I was president at the time, and I was shocked.
Well,
I could not believe it.
What do these people know?
So just go. So don't ask people what they think. Is the answer to that?
Well, we've asked you what you think. I can't tell you how happy and flattered we are that you've come on. And some of the things you've said today, I've had to write them down again because they're just brilliant. So, John, we're really honoured you've come in, and thank you so much.
Lovely being here, and great going over those. And we always forget. You have to surround yourself with great work because it rubs off. It's that whole thing about, only read good things in the hope that it rubs off.
Yeah.
And I think people forget surrounding yourself with great work, and all of those are great in their own way, is a great way of inspiring it. And all artists do that. All creative people do that.
Yeah.
I kind of, I have this thing about if you read shit, you'll think shit and you'll create shit. And, going through those is just inspiring. Yeah. And more people should be doing this. So wonderful to be here. Yeah, great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
John.
Wow. I need a massive lie down now. That was amazing. I mean, John,
you were scribbling stuff all the way through that. What were you writing down?
He was
were you giving you all the sound bites? Is that all your social profile
rockets
from
going
now?
to the moon, orgs? I mean, it's like...
You were writing social posts, weren't you?
Yeah.
You were going, I'm going to write that one down. I'm going to write that one down.
The one
inspirational
about,
quotes.
Yeah, the Sistine Chapel. I'd never quite remembered it exactly. The way he said it. Yeah, it's on the ceiling, not on the wall, because it's God. That's like media. And God, everything about that was brilliant.
Michelangelo was the ultimate media man, is the quote.
John Hegarty, thank you so much. It was just mind-blowing, wasn't it? It was so much better. I mean, number 21 was good, but it was in lockdown, sitting in each other's fucking kitchens, not seeing each other. He's just sat right next to us.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed that. That's it is a big occasion for us to get to 100. So we also need to thank you all for putting up with us and hearing us.
Yeah, it really all of our
on.
guests, and then obviously John Jones, our legendary third man.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, though, Ooh, That's Nice, the 100th episode special. Ooh, That's Nice is brought to you by our friends at View to Fill, the video and photography campaign specialists.
Yeah, we've got two or three nice ones lately. Channel 4 does 4 Creative for Channel 4 did some wonderful D6s, backlit stuff, very funny. They could have just been shit with some caption and a still from the show, but they weren't. They were like killing it at work. Was for Dexter was brilliant. There's the Poppy, the huge Poppy.
Yeah,
in
the
King's
Poppy
Cross.
stuff was great.
It's really
King's Cross.
amazing, beautiful bit of ambient work there. We didn't know who did that, so if anyone can tell us. And there's Guinness, the new brewery is kicking off. We had a note today from someone who's going to give us a bit more info on that. But those lovely little posters, just in the old school fashion of Guinness, the pint, but they use things from the.
There was a good bit of buzz about a poker company did something outside King's Cross last week as well, where they gave away to one lucky interactor who pushed a button in front of a screen a trip to Vegas. So I'll get those photos.
Oh, that's great. Let's see that. I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
So a few more thanks.
Yes. Our thanks to our friends at Soho Radio Viral Tribe for putting up with us. We've got this lovely new studio today for our 100th episode. Which
Thank you,
fantastic.
Nick. Thank you, Rachel.
And Adrian.
Adrian's not here, but, Adrian's always incredibly important to us.
And our friends at Gaz Music. And we also must say thanks to our key sponsors, who you'll hear from now.
Dan.
Yeah.
Do you know what I do? Genuinely, do you know what I love about outdoor?
No, I don't.
Loads and loads. But one of the best things, I think Heg actually mentioned it, but, we're champions of this. You can't swipe it. You can't skip it. It's everywhere. It's real and it's there. And if it's done well, the impact is massive.
We're saying it's omnipresent. Do you like that word?
Ooh. Swallow the dictionary.
I think Bauer Media Outdoor really get that as well. I mean, they've got the scale as well to back that up. They've got 33,000 sites across the UK. But I think what's great is, having such a big media owner on board as a sponsor is the way they help our community and brands actually use the space properly.
Yeah, and they've got tons of guidance. How to craft great posters, making sure designs are not just seen but actually remembered, which is the absolute, the most important thing.
Powerful posters, if you will.
Exactly.
We're really lucky. This episode is brought to you by Bauer Media Outdoor. They're one of the UK's largest out-of-home media owners. The billboard at the end of my street is brought to you by Super Optimal. Design intelligence for out-of-home. Super Optimal delivers simple, machine-driven analysis and actionable insights for reviewing and improving out-of-home ad design. Designers and media teams can quickly analyze billboard and poster designs, gain optimization feedback, and deliver out-of-home design that is fit for purpose. Test and learn. Make informed design decisions and elevate your out-of-home campaigns at superoptimal.ai.
Ooh, That's Nice is brought to you by View to Fill, the out-of-home campaign photography and video experts. View to Fill have spent a decade mastering the art of out-of-home campaign capture. They know how these campaigns run: adaptive display schedules, dynamic creatives, and high expectations. That's why brands trust them to deliver stunning photography and next-level videography. From drones to time-lapse and motion capture, View to Fill turn your campaign into powerful content that lives far beyond the humble billboard. Because out-of-home campaigns are not just about being seen, it's about being remembered and creating a legacy. Want to future-proof your next campaign? Visit View to Fill to capture the essence of your campaign. Our music is sponsored by Gas Music, delivering sound, music, and magic. I think, is this the end of the year?
This is the end of the year, because what's coming next, Hugh? We're off to New York.
Okay, now that we're excited, and now people are looking at us through the window saying, get off air.
Yeah, Rachel's saying, get the fuck out of my
Dan,
studio.
it's been a great year. It's been a great 6 years.
It's been fantastic.
I love you dearly. I'm looking forward to much more years.
6 more.
Okay.
100 more to come.
Keep following, keep subscribing, liking. Bye.